That thing's useful. Okay, so invisibility cloaks. Pretty freaking awesome, if I do say so myself. And we are going to look at the first chapter where we see how important and how useful this invisibility cloak actually is. So we're looking at, of course, the Mirror of Erised. Now, what happens is when Harry gets this cloak, there is a note attached to it, and what that note tells him to do is to, as you can see by the title, use it well. Well, that's very, very vague. Now, again, as we trace it through, we happen to know that Dumbledore is actually the one who has given Harry this invisibility cloak. The D sort of gives it away on that one. But he also gives along this instruction to use it well. And the first thing that Harry actually uses it for is to sneak out in the middle of the night and sneak into the restricted section at the library. How well this use is thus a little questionable. Just a little bit. So what we then have to figure out is how this actually helps to develop Harry's instinct to use the cloak well. And how it starts is the fact that Dumbledore is being very vague about this. Use it well depends on what your definition of well and use is. For Harry in this moment, breaking the rules, that is his definition of using it well, because he sees that there are bigger consequences beyond the point loss, the detentions, or even expulsion. And we see this even more clearly in the later chapters, and I'll refer to them now because I'm not going to be able to get back to this, with Hagrid and sneaking out Norbert the dragon. This is what Harry considers using it well. He's breaking the rules, but he's breaking the rules for a reason that he has, and a reason that he feels is a very positive one. So what we actually have within this chapter is Harry's discovery of the Mirror of Erised. And this itself is a whole little host of issues and interests and problems. Because of course you get the comparison between Harry and Ron again. And even throwing Dumbledore into here. The Mirror of Erised, of course, is the Mirror of Desire, if you read Erised backwards. And what it does is it shows a person their heart's greatest desire. And for Harry, that is having a family, because he's never had a family that's truly loved him and cared for him. At least not a blood-related family. His blood-related family doesn't love and care for him. He's getting that now from friends, but it's not quite the same thing as knowing your parents and knowing your grandparents and knowing your family history. Because that is the big thing to note between the differences of the movie and the books. In the movie, it's just showing Harry's parents. In the books, it's actually quite a few people. He's sort of got the family on both sides that he wishes he could have known. Ron, of course, comes in, and like Dumbledore points out, for a young man who is the youngest of all his brothers, he's got a lot to live up to. So, seeing himself then rise above all of his brothers, that is a really deep desire. And while it gets at the jealousy issue that we're going to have with Ron throughout the series, it also gets at a very deep issue that a lot of people don't consider, which is when you put yourself up against all of these expectations, you either want the most and push for the most, or you're going to fail. And this can be very difficult for people to deal with, because you don't want to be the person who has all these expectations that have been previously set by brothers, in Ron's case. You want to be able to hit those, you want to be at least able to match those, if not go beyond them. It hurts a lot if you find yourself wanting in that moment, even if other people don't find you wanting. You find yourself wanting in that moment. It creates a lot of deep-seated issues, which I think is something really important that we need to consider with Ron in this moment. And then Dumbledore, of course, just lies. Again, a deep-seated issue we're going to have to watch with Dumbledore as we go through. Because even Harry at this point in time has admitted that he is pretty sure that Dumbledore lied in that moment. Though he does admit it was a personal question that he asked. So this is something we're going to have to watch. But let's get back to the cloak and invisibility. So we start out with the cloak and we have very vague instructions to use it well. And again, well is very, it's a personal decision that people are going to have to make. And Harry makes that decision in attempting to find out who Nicholas Flamel is. And it's sort of escaping from the consequences of that situation that we then run into the Mirror of Erised. What the mirror is actually acting as at this point, because it does provide a hint for Harry solving the final problem down with the Philosopher's Stone, but at this point in time it is actually acting as a temptation. This is something that a well does not cover it. You're not using the cloak well if it's causing some sort of self-destructive harm, even if you don't realize that's what the mirror is actually causing. So the mirror here is acting as a temptation. It's the first test for Harry for his use of the cloak. And unfortunately, though this is to be expected, he's not a perfect character and he's only 11 years old. He's never had a family. Harry fails this test. That's why we have Dumbledore step in. Now, Dumbledore doesn't step in immediately. He does give Harry several nights to try and pass this test. Ron does. Ron tries to stop Harry and says that this obsession with the mirror is not a good thing. This is why Harry needs friends, is because Harry's not going to be able to pass all these tests on his own. And as you see here, even with Ron, Harry doesn't pass this test. It takes Dumbledore stepping in. And this, again, is a safety mechanism. Dumbledore's given Harry the tools that he needs to either give in to this temptation of the mirror or to resist and use in other ways. And when Harry does keep giving in to this temptation, Dumbledore steps in. And he does so very gently, but he also does it very logically. He tells Harry the truth. That this mirror shows you what you want, but it cannot give you it. So you can waste away in front of this and get nothing. And that's why he says it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live. He's teaching Harry that the use of the tool and the use of Harry's own time is better spent elsewhere. It's better spent on actions that will gain results. So then, when we actually look forward with Hagrid and the dragon, this, again, is another thing. It's another test. But this is one that's actually going to get results. This is not something that Harry is going to be butting his head against and not getting anything in return. If Harry acts here, he receives something. Not personally, of course, but he receives the retention of his friendship with Hagrid, because if Hagrid got caught with the dragon, then Hagrid, of course, would have been arrested. It's illegal to have a dragon. So Harry's actually able to retain his friendship with Hagrid through his actions and the use of the invisibility cloak. The Mirror of Erised does not give him that. So what we're actually getting here is a very intelligent lesson for Harry in the use of the invisibility cloak and also the use of his own time and energy. Actions that produce results, even if they're not personal results, are always going to be better than actions or inaction that produces nothing. That's why Dumbledore steps in when he does. He does not allow Harry to continue with this temptation. And in fact, he does actually remove that temptation fully by moving the Mirror of Erised. In the end, we'll also see that Harry overcomes that temptation. But we'll talk about that in the last video for Philosopher's Stone, which isn't yet. We have at least one more, possibly two, before we get there. So, let's keep going. Bye!